Today we want to talk about some of the real practice. We're going to talk about the fact of you're coming into a community situation. You've never lived maybe like that before. And some of the questions that have come in that I was to cover during this time is, how do you live in a community setup? How do you make a home in one room? How do you travel with kids and keep your sanity? And let me just encourage you. I'm going to tell you my own experiences. I'll give you some illustrations of how you can work at it. But as you come into this situation, know that God's going to help you. And that whatever place you find yourself, if you're on an outreach and you're in a tent, if you're living in the basement of the church or above it or in back of it, if you're in some old tenement house, that is the home your children are going to have right then and there. And so wherever you are, that's going to be your home. Don't live temporarily, because you just go from one temporary situation to another and you never establish yourself. And so come into this situation as if this is going to be your home for a while and make it look like your little home. I was trying to think this morning about how to help you do this. How can I talk about all of these adjustments that you would have to make? And I think what I'd like to do is I would just like for us to envision a few scenarios. And then we'll walk through those together, and maybe we'll find some things that are helpful through that. The first thing is, if you're going to live in one room, or you're going to live in a new culture or in a new situation, you got to get yourself organized, and you got to try to figure out how to take care of the necessities of life and be as self-sufficient as you possibly can. You may be living in a community where there's a public dining room, where there's a laundry room, where all those facilities are. But remember, every time you go out of the door, particularly if you have little kids, you're going to have to take your little kids with you. That's going to make everything a big deal. And I have found in traveling, in whatever I do, I try to be ready to take care of myself. I don't always have to, but I'm prepared for that. So think in terms of systems that will help you not lose energy by having to mix with people every time you want to do anything. That's part of what wears us out in community, is that whatever you do, there's interaction. And and it isn't that you don't like those people, but there's no time to build up your own battery. So when you wake up in the morning and you go for breakfast, you stand in line and you talk to people at breakfast. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is that everywhere, that's where you would lose energy. And there's some days you just like a little more quiet time by yourself. So think in terms of what you can do to keep yourself self-sufficient in your one little room, even when it's not necessary. Then you have that option. The other thing is you have to be well organized. Now, some of us are more gifted in this than others. And so if you're coming into a situation like this and you know you're not very well organized, that you don't manage well, find somebody that does. I have friends that I have helped. I've just lived like this afresh when I was in Tonga a year ago. And we were all living in the one-room situation or in our folly in the bathroom down the road, and not enough water and lots of mud and all those kinds of things. So all of this is very real to me. And I have just one of my dearest friends who is just no good at putting any of this thing together. And she has 3 boys. She says, help me. And I just had such fun helping her. So most of us that are kind of good at this, we enjoy helping other people. So if you see somebody that looks like they're somewhat in their right mind and they seem to be able to, that helps qualify me. I said the somewhat. Then get them to help you. Also think about the kind of person that you are. What is your temperament? Now, I'm a very good manager and I'm quite well organized, but I'm not exceptionally tidy. So if you can be well organized and not be real tidy and neat. Or you can be real neat, but not very well organized. And that kind of makes a difference to how you're going to put your little one room together, all right? Also think in terms, what is the energy drain for you? How can you live and have some kind of life of your own with living in just one room? So now I'll give you some of the tricks that I have done. This is not the way to do it. You'll know for yourself. If I'm coming into a one-room situation, the first thing I do is look at the bed and see how high I can get that bed off the floor. If you have to just put wooden blocks underneath the four corners, because the higher the bed is, the better place you have to store stuff. Because the big problem in living in one room is where to put the stuff. So I always get the bed up as high as I can so I can put all the stuff underneath. And then you make a little flounce that goes all around the bed, and nobody knows just how much stuff is in there. If you're a person that's quite tidy, you're not going to need to have everything covered over. You can have open shelves because you'll keep everything tidy. I will not, but I hate clutter. And so if you were coming into my one-room situation, you'd find the bed up pretty high because I'd have a whole lot of things you don't know anything about underneath there. When we had children living in one room, I'd always have a table, a round table, which you can make easily and get some plyboard, make a 36-inch round, get some legs and put on it, and then all you have to do is you have the fabric go, the tablecloth, all the way to the floor. And underneath there, you have all the kids' toys. And they can be taken out, they can be shoved underneath there. Somebody comes in, it looks nice. Baskets are wonderful. And so you use lots of baskets, and if you're like me again, and it may not all get in there just right, then you have baskets with lids, and they're very decorative, and they look nice. And you have your baskets there. That also might be a place where you keep the toys, or the dirty laundry, or your sweaters, or your towels. It's the storage of things that makes it difficult. Now, I always try to have a wash-up corner, a place where I can serve tea, all of that. You can figure out, I've done it with wooden crates. You make a couple of wooden crates, and those are where my dishes are, and you have a hot pot. I always carry a hot pot with me and an extension cord. I got an extension cord that with me now will go for 110 or 220, and it winds up about this big, and that way I can plug in when I need to plug in my computer in some place, or my coffee pot, or my hair dryer, because a lot of times you've got one outlet, behind the bed, and you can't work with that. So have a place that I would call, if I was living in my one room, this is my kitchen area. And in that kitchen area, I would be sure that I got from maybe a camping store, or you had an old bleach bottle or whatever it is. I always try to have a water supply in my room, because you can brush your teeth then without having to walk clear down. You can wash out the teacups. I usually have several things, and you can get from the camping store, those kinds that even crowd down, don't take up very much space as the water goes out of them. Now, a couple of dish pans that you're able to wash your dishes, and you've got your water there, so you can wash your dishes, you can fix your coffee, you can brush your teeth, you can do all of those kinds of things without heading down the block, if that's how far you have to go to find the water supply. And you're able then to have breakfast for your family. You can prepare it within your room. You're able to have people over for tea and cookies. Having little round tables or anything else where you can make a tablecloth. If you have two bedstands beside you, you can put, if you don't have chest of drawers, sometimes we come into situations, friends, and there just isn't much furniture available, and you don't have the resources to do it. But again, you can use a crate, you can do whatever you have, store things in there, and then put fabric over it. If you'll just believe the Lord for a few ingredients, you can have a really cute room. You can have a really cute room. You can have, what I usually look for is some kind of coordinating kind of fabrics. Lots of times you can get sheets that are pretty big size, and you then can have your bed cover be made on a sheet. You can have all your other fabrics matching, and you walk in and think this is a really nice room. If you are in a really, really small room where you can't have a full big bed, or maybe the bed is all that will stay in the room, and there's this much space around the edges. I've lived like that too. If you have a room that has a high ceiling, you can have it made. You just get somebody to build you a platform so you have your bed way up there and your chairs underneath, and you have a little ladder and you can go up to your bed. And in a small room, you still can have your living room area and your coffee pot and those kinds of things. You can see what's important to me. And then you climb up to the top, and you still have a social area. You need to have somewhere in that one room a message center. Because that's one of the things. Fix yourself up. This is okay. This is kind of the office corner. It's amazing how many rooms you can get out of one room, all right? But you've got the calendar, and tie the pencil on. Tie a pair of little scissors. I usually have a basket in which I keep all the things that you nearly always lose or that the kids would take and never get back. And I tied on there the Scotch tape, and I tied on the scissors, and I tied on the pens. So it all in this little basket, all that junk drawer stuff that you need, and you don't have a junk drawer, you have it all in one basket, the glue and stapler and all that kind of stuff. But, as your kids get, not little kids, but as they get a little bit older, they use all those things. And then that's the tough part of living in one room kind of situation. You can lose stuff so badly. And you can't find it, so if you get it, so it can't be taken away. And then on your message center, you have a little bulletin board, your calendar, people's phone numbers, everything there, and that's on the wall somewhere, or if you have a built-in closet, like you have lots here, maybe wardrobes, you can use the door of the wardrobe inside, and that's the message center. Unless when it's out, you knock your face in it as you're walking past. But think in terms of all the things that you need to run your life and figure out, there is a way we can do this. There is a way we can do this. Think about what's bugging you. What's making this most difficult? One of the things when we were there, like in Tonga, we had these cute little follies which had a little veranda on the outside, like a porch on the outside. But because we were just building, there was mud everywhere, and you just couldn't keep your folly floor clean at all. I mean, mud that when you walked in it was like platform shoes afterwards. The layers just stuck. And so we were all mopping around. I thought, this is ridiculous. So I got a plastic deal that had a little hose on it, and on the outside the door, I fixed a place for everybody to wash their feet. Leave your shoes out there and wash your feet. And I had soap and a towel and the pan and everything ready. And for my friend with her boys, we set up a place for the boys to be able to change their shoes outside and wash, and came in with clean feet. But you can keep mopping and think this dirt's just driving me crazy, or the laundry's driving me nuts, or whatever it is, and then take it one step farther, and say, what can I do about it? What's the system that would make this thing not happen to me? Well, I could sell the kids, give away my husband. No, those are not good answers. Are you with me? Another time, when Lauren and I were living in Tonga, and the first place we were was a really small room. It wouldn't have been big enough to get a whole bed in. And so we had single mattresses, and it just made the single mattresses be like a couch, and put our pillows on there, and then we would stretch them out on the floor at night, and that way we had a couch. And you can think it through so that you have your kitchen, so that you have your office with your message center and the supplies for doing those kinds of things. You have the children's playroom. It may be underneath that tablecloth, but there's all their toys. And then you have this storage underneath your bed. has just about everything in it. And if you have it high enough, then you can be able to look under there and keep your categories straight. Laundry can be a real problem for you. What I did, by having my bed up high enough, sometimes you want to just soak things overnight, or you have nappies or one of those, you can put that, do it, and stick it underneath the bed if you've got your bed up high enough. The other thing I think it's important to keep in mind is that if you have a good tape recorder and nice tapes, one of the things that wears you out is all the noise all the time. And if you can, we always have liked classical music, and if you can walk in the room and the coffee's on and the classical music's playing and your flowers are sitting there and everything's in somewhat of an order, welcome home. And you have a desire to make this a nurturing place and a home. Now, if you're living where there is good weather, then you can do lots and lots of things outside, because you can think in terms of going for a picnic. Well, you say, we eat the base food and so on. We'll find out what the week's menus are. That's not usually too hard to find out. And I used to just try to find that out. And then there's usually some kind of place to take a picnic close by. Maybe it's just out in the garden of the base. Maybe you don't go anywhere. But you just take your little tablecloth and the food from the base, and you and your family go on outside and you have that little family time. Because one of the things that you will have to be careful of if you're living in a true community situation where you have community meals and you have little children, it's wonderful to have all the fellowship at the table with the adults, and you can forget you've got kids. And all you're doing is hushing them. And they never, and you can't do that. So don't eat all your meals in that kind of situation. I think the nicest thing that we can have at community is where you have tables of all different sizes. And then sometimes you want to be with other people, and that's just fine. But if you do that 3 meals a day, the meal time is a fellowship time. And that also is a time then you don't have the opportunity to teach the kids good manners, because you can't do that in front of other people. And so remember always that you're the little family within the big family. And you have to be deliberate about planning those things. But you can do that. One of the things that becomes tiresome in the community, again, is never being able to get by yourself. And don't let that happen to you. Plan by yourself time. If you're in a city situation, there's lots of nice hotel lobbies. Go in and order a cup of coffee and read the Time magazine. Take a walk by yourself. You husbands and wives can help each other in that, and you just know that you need a little bit of alone time, and don't wait till you're desperate for it. That's the thing I've learned about living in community. And friends, I need to tell you, I have lived in the center of the community until our children were 17 and 19. I mean, in the middle of community. And so I really do know what I'm talking about as far as the fact that you have to work on pacing yourself and being good to yourself in this situation. And nobody else is going to look out for that, but you have a responsibility to do that, so you won't get worn out in doing well. All right. So we have our little house fixed up. We look for times to go with our children. Let's say you're in a place where there isn't good weather. I've lived there too with little kids, where it rains all the time. And this is when we were living in that little cabin, 7 feet by 9 feet, where there just wasn't any room. That was difficult. So I looked to go to the shopping center, not to shop for myself, but as a recreation time with the kids. And because we would be out of the rain and the mud. And you try to think in terms of where you can take the children. Just even getting on the bus and going for a bus ride and going for an ice cream with the children, that becomes an adventure. You're going on the bus, you're doing this, but you're taking them out of that small environment and giving them a place to breathe. And you have a responsibility to do that. And again, if you are in a community situation where there are lots of you as young moms, let me encourage you to be good to each other. Take each other's children. Give one another a break. I think that's been one of the real pluses that I have had. And as I mentioned earlier, that's part of why I'm so close to so many of these children. I've taken a lot of care of them. But I always felt like if I was going to take care of my kids and somebody else's kids, I wasn't going to try to do something else. I might as well just accept the fact this is going to be kid time. So I'd play with the kids, plan an adventure with them, read to them, do things with them. Because that's what I was doing. I was giving my friend time off, but I wanted to make it a good time for her children too. And her kids like to come be with me. And my kids like to be with them because they plan things. Prayer times and all, I learned to go out walking, stick the kids in the stroller and walk and pray. Also because I always had quite a few ministry responsibilities. I've always done quite a bit of counseling and all. I would, if I'd say to somebody, hey, is this the kind of thing we could talk about and walk? Would it bother you if we walked and I pushed the stroller and we talked then? And lots of times it didn't. Sometimes, yes, that would not have been appropriate. But you're looking for ways to keep your children involved. We do lots and lots of meetings, public meetings, private meetings. When you're living in a community, there's times of worship maybe in the morning, special meetings in the evening. I always wanted to keep my kids with me. I had also had, because we traveled all of the time, I didn't want my children staying with people that I didn't know. And so I taught my children to sleep at my feet no matter where I was. They each had small sleeping bags, little pillows that had their names embroidered on them. And we would go to the meetings equipped. And the children, I've been in the back of cathedrals. I've had people stare at me a lot. I've been in the back of the cathedral, and I've just slipped my children underneath the pew in their little sleeping bags, and they've put their heads down and gone to sleep in the back of tents and all over the place, because I know that as a mother, I am responsible for my children to get enough rest. So I had only two other choices. One was strange people take care of my children all the time. I don't mean that people are strange, I mean strange to them, people they didn't know. Or stay home myself. And for me, neither one of those were an option. And so I taught the children to put their heads down at an appropriate time. I would bring special little toys for them that they had for meetings. As they got a little bit older, and maybe I was up speaking, I would have had my children over here in the corner, and they would be sitting on their sleeping bags if I was running a meeting. And I had a little timer that would click with when the time came. It was 8 o'clock. That was their bedtime. So no matter where we were, 8 o'clock was the bedtime. And the clicker would go off, and they'd put their toys away, and they'd put their heads down and go to sleep. Well, that doesn't happen by just commanding it to happen. You practice lots. You can practice at home. You help the child know how to do this. Now, not every child can go to sleep with all that kind of stimulus around. My personal conviction is that almost all could. It's a matter of training, and if you never have known any other way to sleep at night, you'd learn. Remember, most of the world lives in very crowded conditions, friends. Most of the world lives in very crowded conditions. Most of the world doesn't have separate bedrooms. And so we have a mentality that this is the only way or the right way to live. But if you will train your children, then they will be able to go with you and be a part of what you do. The children always had backpacks, and they were able to take any amount of toys with them that they could put in their backpack. We tried to keep a good supply of things to keep them entertained. One of the things I used a lot of on long trips, and we took lots of long trips, were tapes with earphones for them to have stories. If you're away from your family, one of the wonderful things that Grandma could do is read books to them on tape and tell them stories on tape. Hi, this is Grandma. Let's get out your Black Beauty book. I'm going to read to you now. And they'll turn the pages. You can tell them stories. Let them tell them family stories, not just books stories. And because those are the things, if you're away from the grandparents or the aunties, that you miss. Auntie misses it, Grandma misses it. But the child then is relating closely, and tapes are just a wonderful way. Lauren traveling so much of the time, he would often send tapes back to the children. Karen had her daddy tapes, who nobody else ever got to listen. She always would go in her room. This is the introvert in the family. She would go in, shut that door, or go over where nobody could see her in the corner, get herself all together, put her earphones on, and I would know right where she was in the tape. Yes, Daddy, I'm being a good girl. And then I'd hear it go, and I'd wait, yes, I will. And she would answer back his questions. But nobody else ever listened to those tapes. Those were her daddy tapes. Those were not shared. One of the things that you run into that's difficult for us in this close relationship is, what do you do about sharing your toys and sharing your things? I will not, this is just my personal opinion. This might not work for you, all right? I made a decision real early in living in community that the things that I had really belonged to the Lord, and I was just a steward of them. And so if somebody else needed it, it was okay with me for them to use it. They won't always take care of things as well as I will, but that was my own personal philosophy. You do not have to share everything you have, friends. You're not, there is no rule to say you must. I just have to say for myself, I never found I could outgive the Lord. We have left people to use our home with everything there, and I've always allowed people to use things. I've had a lot of nice things given to me. It's been my joy when young people are getting married to let them use silver and china and all. And I've found that most people take good care of things. You do not have to do that. And some people won't take good care of things. One of the things I recognize that sometimes people didn't recognize the value of something. For instance, when Lauren and I got married, we had a lot of expensive china given to us. Some people don't recognize the value of expensive china, especially Americans. And so when somebody wants to borrow those things for a wedding or anything, I just say to them, you are more than welcome to use this. But I just want you to know, if something gets broken, I can't afford to replace it, and neither can you. Now, I've probably broken more things than anybody else would, so don't be under bondage. Just be careful. That's all. Accidents will happen, and I understand that. But I just want you to know that about it. Or if you ask somebody, use something, then explain to them what the use of that is. One of the things that gets really tough for you, maybe you're the only person that God's provided a car for. Every time you get in the car, there's a trail of people behind you needing a ride to the bus stop or whatever it is. And that can be very annoying because you just never can get out the door by yourself. And so you got to talk about that, and you got to figure out how you're going to handle it. It's not an easy thing to handle. You've been given a vehicle the others haven't. Shouldn't you share? Yeah, you should, but you would like to be able to drive your own car without a load of people. And so you'll just have to, those kinds of things are hard to walk through. I can tell you some answers in that kind of thing. You just kind of watch and go when nobody's around. You don't announce to the world you're going to town right after lunch. You just get out there and go before lunch is over. You think it through. But I just have to say to you that in most cases, I have never seen the Lord not honor being generous. But you don't have to be. And it's a difference to how you think about things. Children and their toys. The children have a right to have some toys that are their toys. And one of the ways that I worked that is I had, in my mind, I had corporate toys and Cunningham toys. And I just kept the Cunningham toys in special places and let the children know that those were the things they played when we were just there as a family. Those were the family kind. That was a family time when you played with those toys. The other time you played with other toys. Or you have toys that can be more easily broken and other children aren't as careful with it. Almost all of these things, friends, that cause you consternation and difficulty, if you'll think about it ahead of time, you can usually figure out that there's a solution to it.